Listen, I'm about to tell you something that could completely reshape how the Dallas Cowboys approach pick number 12. And if you're not subscribed, yet do me a favor and smash that subscribe button right now, because this channel gives you Cowboys news the second it breaks, and we're growing fast. Join the family before you miss the next big update, because things are starting to move quickly as we get closer to draft night. Okay, so let's get right into it, because this has been one of the most anticipated pro days of the entire draft cycle. I'm talking about the Tennessee Volunteers Pro Day featuring the cornerback everybody has been waiting to see, and that is Kamal Hatton. This is the guy who hasn't stepped on a football field in a competitive game in over a year, which is exactly why scouts across the league were paying extremely close attention to every single drill he participated in. The reason this pro day mattered more than almost any other individual workout this spring is because we literally had zero game film to reference from this past season. All we had were memories of what this dude looked like back in 2024 when he was locking down some of the best receivers in college football. That's why this workout became such a huge evaluation moment for scouts and front offices across the league. And the crazy part is the results actually came in better than a lot of people expected. One report had his vertical jump coming in at 38 inches and his broad jump at 107 inches. Now look, those numbers aren't going to make you fall out of your chair, and they're not the kind of viral testing numbers that explode on social media, but they absolutely show something important. What they tell you is that this kid still has explosion in his lower body. He still has power and burst, which is exactly what teams worry about when a player is coming off a torn ACL. The biggest concern with that type of injury is always whether the player loses that explosive first step, and based on these numbers, it doesn't look like that happened. The straight line speed was also there, and that brings us to the 40-yard dash, which is always the headline number. His 40 came in at a reported 4.38. Now that was a pro day time and not a laser combine time. So if you apply the typical adjustment that scouts make, you're probably looking at something closer to a 4.44. Even with that adjustment, that's still a perfectly solid time for a cornerback prospect expected to go early in the draft. It confirms the speed is still there, and it confirms that athletically, he hasn't lost what made him such an intriguing prospect before the injury. But here's where things start to get a little murkier, and it's something that not enough people are talking about. The position drills. One national analyst confirmed that McCoy did go through position-specific drills at the pro day, but the issue is there's barely any footage of those drills available publicly. I saw one clip circulating online, and it was basically just a straight line movement drill. There wasn't anything that showed real lateral movement or hip flipping or quick directional changes. And that's important because cornerback is not a straight line position. Corners have to move side to side constantly. They have to transition out of back pedals, mirror receivers, and explode out of breaks. Those are exactly the types of movements that put stress on a surgically repaired knee. So until more footage or reports come out, there's still a bit of uncertainty there. The Cowboys did have representation at the pro day, though. Scouts from the Dallas Cowboys were watching closely and taking notes. Their medical staff and evaluators will ultimately have far more information than what fans or media can see from a few social media clips. Another interesting wrinkle that popped up during the evaluation process is the confusion surrounding McCoy's injury timeline. One analyst casually mentioned that McCoy may have actually been cleared to return to action during the season, but ultimately chose not to play. If that report is accurate, then teams are absolutely going to want answers. If a player was healthy enough to return, why didn't he suit up? Was there a setback behind the scenes? Was the school protecting him? Or was it a personal decision to focus on the draft? These are the types of questions that will likely come up during private team interviews and pre-draft visits, because when you're considering using a top 12 pick on a player, you want absolute clarity. To put the timeline into context, McCoy originally tore his ACL back in January, which means we're now roughly 14 to 15 months removed from the injury. His last competitive game was in December during the college football playoff matchup against the Alabama Crimson Tide. In that game, he did give up a few plays to one of the best receivers in college football, but let's be honest, that receiver was beating a lot of defensive backs that season. One tough matchup doesn't erase everything McCoy showed on tape. And when you go back and watch his earlier tape, he looked genuinely special. There was even a game against Alabama where he completely disrupted the rhythm of the opposing passing attack. His physicality, length, and ability to stay in phase with receivers were all obvious strengths. That's exactly why many draft analysts still believe he belongs in the conversation as one of the top cornerbacks in the entire draft class. The talent was never the question. The only real question has always been the health and readiness. Now this becomes incredibly important when you look at things from the Cowboys' perspective, because owner Jerry Jones made something very clear earlier in the offseason. During discussions around the NFL scouting combine, he said the team is not planning to redshirt draft picks this year. In other words, whoever they draft needs to be ready to contribute immediately. That philosophy makes sense when you consider the roster situation and the fact that Dallas doesn't currently have a second-round pick. That means every selection they make carries even more importance. If McCoy isn't fully ready for week 1, then that creates a real dilemma. On pure talent, he might absolutely be worth pick 12, but if there's even a small chance he can't start right away, the Cowboys have to think carefully about that. Now here's where the situation actually becomes interesting, even if Dallas ultimately decides not to draft him. If other teams still view McCoy as a top 12 talent, that helps Dallas in a different way. More elite players being taken early means a greater chance that someone else slides down the board. A player expected to go 10 or 11 could suddenly be available at 12 simply because another team takes a chance on McCoy. That's why his health status could end up influencing the entire top portion of the draft board, whether the Cowboys draft him or not. Now let's shift to another cornerback story that surfaced this week involving Terrell Jr. from the Clemson Tigers. Terrell had a private workout scheduled for NFL teams because he didn't fully test at Clemson's original pro day. He had previously tweaked his hamstring at the combine, and the private workout was supposed to be his chance to show teams he was healthy and capable of posting better testing numbers. Unfortunately, the worst possible scenario happened. On his very first 40-yard dash attempt, he aggravated the hamstring again. The workout ended immediately, and scouts who traveled to watch him left without a full athletic testing profile. Now that's obviously frustrating timing for the player, but it's important to keep perspective here. Terrell was not known as an injury-prone player during his college career. This appears to be more of a case where a minor injury was pushed too soon rather than a chronic problem. Because of that, most teams probably won't dramatically change their evaluation of him. The tape still shows a physical corner who plays aggressively, supports the run, and has a knack for creating turnovers. Those are traits that defensive coordinators love. From a Cowboys perspective, he could be an interesting option later in the first round. Pick 12 might be a bit early, but pick 20 could be a very realistic landing spot. One thing that often gets overlooked in Cowboys draft discussions is the importance of the slot corner position. Dallas may actually prioritize finding a strong nickel defender, and Terrell's physical playing style could translate very well to that role. So when you look at the bigger picture, the cornerback situation for Dallas is becoming more complicated every single week. McCoy showed encouraging athletic signs, but still carries questions about readiness, while Terrell remains an intriguing option but comes with a recent injury setback. And with 2 first-round picks and no second-round selection, the margin for error for the Dallas Cowboys is extremely small. Every decision they make could shape the future of this defense. So now the big question becomes simple. Would you take McCoy at pick 12 and bet on the talent, or would you wait and target someone like Terrell at pick 20? Let me know your answer, because this debate among Cowboys fans is only going to get louder as draft night approaches. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to cover every single Cowboys update right here.